Russian President Vladimir Putin says he believes that the United States understands the complexity of reaching a peace settlement in Ukraine. Putin, who is on an official state visit to Kyrgyzstan, was speaking at a bilateral meeting with his Belarusian counterpart Alexander Lukashenko. The two leaders held talks in Bishkek on the eve of the summit of the member countries of the Russia-led Collective Security Treaty Organization. The Russian president did not give any further details on resumed contacts with and talks with the U.S. officials aimed at reaching a deal to end the war in Ukraine. Let's speak about this story and more now with international relations expert and former diplomat Dr Kingsley Makhubela. Very good evening to you, Doc, and thank you so much for your time. Before we even get into Ukraine and as well as Russia, there's developments coming out of Guinea-Bissau tonight. Your reaction?
Thanks very much, Bongwe. In the last few hours, military have seized control in Guinea-Bissau. The excuse they are using is because both Embalo and Fernando Diaz, they have unilaterally announced that they are the winners. They've gained 50 plus 1% of the required number to form a government. This is what the military has used to intervene because the elections were supposed to be announced tomorrow. This intervention has scuttled everything. We now know that Embalo has been arrested. We don't know about the whereabouts of Fernando Diaz as it is. But, Guinea-Bissau has been really affected by coups after coups, and there have been really serious problem of narcotic traffic that are used within the port of Bissau, which has created a bit of a problem for the leadership in Guinea-Bissau.
So what does this mean then for a country that waits for the election results?
It simply means that they've nullified, the military said they've nullified the results. So the results are unlikely to be announced. If they've been nullified, it means they are probably destroyed the ballot papers. And the authenticity of whatever remains in the ballot box can be guaranteed now that they've been nullified, meaning that the Electoral Commission has been dissolved. The military has taken total control, as they say, over everything. So the military is in charge now. We basically don't have elections. You will definitely find statements coming from the AU tomorrow denouncing this military coup again. And the problem will be, to what extent will the African Union be able to act or provide a political direction in terms of these challenges? The West African community would definitely make their own pronouncement around this issue. But it has really created a serious challenge of governance within the African Union, even within Guinea-Bissau.
Yeah, and let's stay with that, because when you think about the fact that a statement is not going to be enough, given the fact that we've seen this countless number of times, at some point, something's got to give. At some point, it can't be that, leaders are going to just issue a statement, denounce it, and then everybody else moves on.
Bongwe, I think it's time that the African Union must come up with punitive measures against a behavior related to rigging of elections, a behavior related to unconstitutional takeover by the military, but also there must be a strategic thinking around the root causes of military coups, because they all vary in terms of the content. You find in some instances there have been very serious dictatorial behavior by the incumbent, really closing the political space and leaving no option except, of course, for people to go to the street. So there's a need to really relook at this behavior and really come up with some punitive action. Until action is taken, we're going to see this behavior persisting. We've seen it just next door in Tanzania. And then everyone then goes there to say the elections, Tanzanian president has won election by 99 or 98%. When everyone has been barred from running for elections, it's just something that needs to be done by the continent.
And especially because even last night we were talking about that case now at the ICC when it comes to Tanzania. But let's move on to, the developments around Ukraine, Russia, the US, and all parties involved. Some European leaders, are looking at this 28-point plan as a capitulation, they're calling it, to Russian demands, saying that for them it seems that this is a Trump who actually wants to appease the Russians. Is it?
The agreement, the 28 points agreement, has serious challenges on both sides. let me just speak about the Russians, things that are unlikely to create problem for the Russians. If you look at one article of this agreement, it speaks about the START and the NPT. These are the non-proliferation treaties. And these are the arrangement between the US and the Russians. They have been included in this agreement. The seizure of the Russian asset is going to create a huge problem. But at the height of that also, you look at President Trump, who's going to be in charge of the Peace Council as it is envisaged. These are the things that I think the Russians are unlikely to accept. But there are things that the Ukrainians are finding very difficult, and they made it quite clear from the beginning. The ceding of territories, now even the control of the only nuclear power station that they have, their non-affiliation to NATO. These are the issues that the Ukrainians are having a problem about. But the Europeans are also having 3 issues on this peace proposal. That the sovereignty of Ukraine must be guaranteed, that it must decide what to do with its future. Even the military, that they can't be dictated to limit their military number to a specific number. So there are a lot of challenges within this agreement. So far, Ukraine has said that they would really respect, and they think this forms the basis, but there are serious issues that they think they want to take up at a bilateral level with Donald Trump. Yeah. And I suspect it's issues around the territory. The Russians have been quite mute about this thing. They're saying they are waiting to get an official communication from the American.
So how then do you begin to find a solution that's likely to be accepted by all parties? Because Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant, for example, is very key to Ukraine, and then you've got, you know, the territories, for example, Donetsk, Luhansk, we do know that's also at the heart of what's going on there. So then you've got Russia that's, of course, not going to be happy with some of what is put in there. So how then do you begin to have a plan that speaks to everybody's concerns?
You know, it seems, Bongiwe, that Donald Trump has made it quite clear to Ukraine that they have to accept the 28 peace plan by the end of this weekend. If they don't do that, he's pulling out everything. The war can continue unabated. And there's been a very forensic diplomatic action by the Europeans. They had a meeting here when they were here in South Africa to look at this peace plan. In Angola, too, they sat around to try to strategize around this, and they seem to want to send a delegation to go and speak to Donald Trump. I don't know they're going to do that before the deadline expires at the end of this week for Donald Trump. So we are back to a stalemate. Yuri Ushkov, the advisor to the Kremlin, he's indicated that this agreement, the 28 peace plan, it forms the basis. But he says there are a lot of issues to be discussed. So you are back to a stalemate in a way, Bongiwe.
It sounds like it could go either way then.
Well, they are having a meeting now in Doha. There are consultations that the Americans are having with the Russians, that Americans are having with the Ukrainians. And these meetings have been kept very closely. Nothing is coming out of them. But the problem has been the leaking of this document. This document should have been leaked because it was forming the basis for the negotiation and for consultation with both disputed. Now that it has been leaked, it has created really a serious problem for the Americans. And the Europeans feel very much undercut because they were not consulted during this discussion. It brings me back to our little ambition as South Africa that we can mediate in the Ukrainian conflict when those who are at the center of it are not even consulted. And they feel very much aggrieved by the fact that the Americans are not consulting them.
It seems like it's a long way ahead, right, both on Guinea-Bissau's part and then on what's going on as far as this Ukraine-Russia, story is concerned. But thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. That was international relations expert and former diplomat Dr. Kingsley Makhubela.